Welcome into our lives.
And welcome to the Expanders Club podcast.
We're so happy to have you.
Join us as we embark on a journey of deep exploration, soul searching, and asking the hard questions.
With the goal of truly understanding the most aligned, empowered, and purposeful versions of ourselves.
We want to live an extraordinary life, and we're willing to dig deep to find out what it takes.
Buckle up. You're about to meet a new version of yourself, an extraordinary one. Hello, friends, and welcome to the Expanders Club podcast. My name is Brooke.
Hey, Brooke. My name's Maddie.
Hey,
Welcome,
Mads.
guys. Hey.
Welcome, everyone. We're so grateful to be here, grateful to have you here listening, excited to share this episode with you. And Maddie, how are you, my friend?
Oh, B, I'm good. I'm really good. Life is great. Summer's here. We're feeling good. Don't you feel it in the air?
Oh my God, I do. Summer is here. We're approaching Cancer season, which we'll get into in a different episode, but it's my favorite season. It's my birthday season, my wedding anniversary. Yeah, I'm feeling it.
Yeah, look, the season's here. I get in the ocean as many days a week as possible, and that brings me so much joy. I was having this conversation with a friend this morning. We went for an ocean dip. I'm just like, the ocean is my healer.
Yeah.
This, to be able to get in it as much as possible, oh my gosh, makes me so happy.
I love that. And to touch on that real quick, for those of you who are watching this on YouTube or Spotify, I am not high. I have been gifted pink eye. So my eyes are red. My sight's a little bit blurry. I can't wear like mascara or anything like that. I just came from urgent care right before recording this, not because it was an emergency, but I don't have a primary care doctor because I see a naturopath. And so, yeah, I have pink eye, which is
the dreaded pink eye.
Yeah, it's a child's disease. And no, I'm not a child. I've also, Mads, I was telling you before we got on, I've literally been sick for like 12 or 13 days straight. And
brutal. I
bring this up because it's a topic we've been talking a lot about lately, which is burnout. And folks, this is what burnout looks like.
Don't let yourselves get there, guys.
Yeah. An adult woman who is sick in the middle of summer with a virus. I have a virus, and a throat virus. I forgot what they said it was called. It sounded kind of like a made up name. And also a bacterial virus in my eyes called pink eye, because I have a weakened immune system from being frickin' burnt out for so long. So I'm just a living example here for everyone of what not to do. If you are heading toward burnout, stop.
Yeah, because I feel like, maybe early days when I met you, I don't think you used to get this sick. And now you get sick all the time.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I have a weakened immune system because of the Lyme disease, which I was diagnosed with back in 2020. But you wonder if a lot of that had to do with burnout as well. Like it all compounds, right? But really it is. I feel it. I feel so depleted. I feel like my energy level, like, my battery is just barely charged, which is better from where it's been, which was not charged at all. But when you get hit with something, and I have a toddler, so I'm exposed to all kinds of things. When you get hit with something, it just depletes that battery so quickly because there's already literally nothing there. Like, she will be sick for a day. My husband will be sick for a day or two, and I'll be sick for 10 days with the same thing that they had. Literally everything she's exposed to, I get 10 times worse than her. And it's just like, I'm so depleted in so many ways, AKA burnt out. And I'm working on it, but damn, like having.
Why is it taking so long?
I mean, you think about it, it's a hole I dug. I mean, I'm willing to admit it was a hole I was in for about 5 years. Like, I was burnt out probably 5 years before I admitted it. But but maybe even before that, like who knows? And so the episode before this, I believe it's episode 21 with our friend Brooke Ansley, who's a hypnotherapist, we talk about a lot of things that lead to burnout are the subconscious patterns and thoughts and ideas and conditioning. And so really, my story better than most. Like those stories started piling on me from the time I was 3 years old, the first incident that I remember. So I've really been operating out of alignment with my soul, with my body, with my whatever, probably my entire life. So that's what leads to burnout. So it's different. It's a different level. Like unalignment, disalignment, misalignment leads to burnout, but I just got into severe burnout. It's probably, if you're misaligned, like you're more susceptible to energy depletion at all times. And we all probably have that a little bit.
Even more of a reason for us to follow what we're meant for.
Yes.
We find it with ease instead of forcing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I hope those of you listening can do this before you're in your late 30s with pink eye like me. But hey, I'm a little dense. And so it took me some hard lessons beaten over the head to wake up. But the good news is you all get to be here and witness it. And I'm on the fast track now, baby.
Thanks for sharing that, B. It doesn't sound fun. Let this be a lesson.
Yes, let my pain look into my eye. Look into my pink eye and let this be a lesson.
Matches with your hair, babe.
Yeah, beautiful. But let's talk about today's episode, because this was a really fun one for me. And I'm sure we haven't had a chance to discuss it. I'm sure you have some thoughts and insights. You and I have both been in the wellness space for, a decade, and in different capacities. We both formed very strong thoughts, opinions, habits, routines. And Kim Shapira, who is on this episode, she is a registered dietitian, among other things. She has a really interesting holistic approach, though, and she calls herself a nutrition therapist, which I loved. But she had some really interesting stuff to say.
I know, she was cool. I really, really like Kim. She's got the facts, she's got the tips. It's really helpful information. And then she's helping you be more intuitive. And yes. Actually, it's so much about mindset, which is really what it is, right? Like being in the food and beverage industry, working with you, I learned, that's where my learnings began, about learning about true health, like learning to read labels, learning to understand what's truly in our food, how it makes us feel. And this is what I teach in my coaching. People come to me and they're like, I just want to eat better. I don't want to eat shitty foods. And it's more about okay, well, why are you choosing to eat
why
those
are you doing
foods?
that?
Because you know it's bad for you, and you know what you should be eating. Or we shouldn't use that word. But you know what you want, could make you feel better, but it's there's a block there. So it's more about the mindset, really understanding what's coming up and why you're making those choices.
Yeah, and I'm sure that I'm sure you've seen examples of this in your practice, and Kim shares some, but you go into these conversations with people who want help with their diets or understanding food labels or, changing their food behavior. And it's not really about the food. The food is the reaction, right? Is the outcome. But I'm sure you've had moments like she had, where she shares one where she was like, oh shit, I'm in over my head. I need to learn much more than just how to treat these people for their health with food. There's so much more here.
So true. I'm I can tell you what I can tell you what's healthy, but actually what's going to make long-lasting difference is for me to teach you to eat intuitively and understand what feels good in your body, and really listen to your body. And Kim speaks about listening to the signals, when I'm craving sugary foods or I'm craving something and I really want it and I can't control, maybe are you really stressed? Are you really tired? Are you triggered by something? Did you use food to heal in the past because your parents gave you food to make you feel better or to celebrate something, and you associated it with making yourself feel better?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that goes deeper.
I mean, think about for a lot of people, like think about how much time you spend thinking about, stressing about, worrying about, overthinking food, and how much freedom there would be on the other side of not, I mean, just an example, had a really good relationship with food for a long time, but when I was a vegan, for example, like it was a lot more work, a lot of like it was this like identity that then became like, oh, I have to be perfect about every meal and I have to read labels and I have to understand, like it's just my example of kind of overthinking food stuff or spending way too much time and effort on that. And then on the other side of that, of like eating intuitively, understanding what your body needs, understanding the basics about food, getting to a place where you feel where you love something that goes back to an episode that we had earlier with Alyssa Goodman. She and Kim are kind of saying the same thing. Kim says, do you trust yourself? Alyssa Goodman said, do you love yourself? And like those are kind of the basics. That's where you need to start. And then from there, like food, it becomes easy. It just becomes a part of the normal way that you think and make decisions. Versus it being something that's such a task or that you stress about or has so much emotional connection to it.
Yeah, and it's so easy to become so rigid and be so strict in what you eat. What I'm really loving recently is learning about my different cycles. And I've got this app called Lively, and it tells you what different foods are really nourishing for you at your different phases of your cycle, whether you're menstruating, you're in your follicular stage, your luteal phase, etc. And I'm reading these foods that they say this is good to eat during this cycle, like this is going to be really nourishing for you. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like it said cherries for maybe my follicular stage, and I was like, that's crazy. I was literally craving cherries, and I went and bought them and I ate them. And so actually it's now I'm like, oh, I was craving that food anyway, and I wanted that food, and that seems really nourishing to me. So now when I go to the farmer's market, when I go to the supermarket, whatever, the grocery store, I am genuinely like, what do I feel like eating this week? Like what would feel really nourishing to my body?
I love that so much.
And that's been helpful.
Because it taps into like it's a great place to starting with food and listening to your intuition, but it's like, it's a good exercise for the larger intuition, right? Like if you can start to listen to your intuition about food and literally hear that voice as soon as it comes up and not dismiss it. And if it's a voice that says like, I want a donut, then maybe you take a second with it and take a breath and say, well, why would I want a donut? But if it's a voice that's saying, I want salmon for breakfast, which is what happened to me the other day, and I got salmon for breakfast, or I want cherries, like that's such a great relationship to start cultivating and trusting. And then you're just like, after you do that enough times, you're just intuitively eating from here out.
And if you're intuitively eating and you're feeling good, then that's great. Follow that. But if you're just eating something because you're like, oh, you're constantly craving foods that don't make you feel good, like you're constantly craving the donuts, you're constantly craving the, fried foods, etc., then like Kim speaks about, that's the signal to like look deeper as what's happening, like what's not aligned for me right now.
And I love her approach too. She's so chill about it. Like the way she says things, you're just like, oh yeah, duh, okay. It just makes it so easy, approachable, chill. I really loved hearing how she approaches things and learning from her.
I mean, I will say, Brooke, there were some moments that I heard you knew you were biting your tongue speaking about eating pretzels, and I knew you that you're like, oh, nah, couldn't do that. There's like, and talking about food being poison, you have freaking rubbed off on me. The other day, I went into just a grocer, make their own almond milk, and it's freaking good. And when they don't have their homemade almond milk, they've got box milk. And obviously I can't drink box milk, but I dropped the word poison the other day in the cafe because I was so angry that they didn't have the homemade almond milk. I was like, I can't drink the poison box milk. And they looked at me. It was just this moment. I was like, I'm sorry, I'm going to leave. It was literally, I was like,
I'll see myself
this
out.
is what you've done to me.
Dude.
Cringe.
I know. I mean, for me, I have strong feelings. And I think part of that is because I came from a place of being so sick and realizing it was from the foods I was eating and healed through food. So there's like a real clear like line for me in the sand of like good food versus bad food. Kim has some really good points because also like that could work for me. That's fine. And that does work for me. Like I don't feel restricted. I don't feel like I don't overthink my food at all. I get excited about the foods I like. I don't crave junky food. Like I have a really good relationship with food, and labeling it that way like feels good to me and works for me. But I'm now influencing a little girl.
Yeah.
And that language might not be super productive. So it really is going to take some reflecting for me. And like, you know, maybe you're a good experiment for me to look at since I influenced you with those words.
I mean, I still have moments where I like go to pick up food and I look at the ingredients list and Brooke's voice is in my head being like, ooh, as if you would eat that. Like, oh my God, the judgy voice.
To me, it comes down to, though it does come down to self-love and self-respect. Like, do you love yourself enough to not eat something that's going to wreak havoc in your system or not make you feel good? You know, it's about, do you love yourself enough to not have that? And I love myself more than I love any food. And so that's where it's coming from. And like anyone that feels like I am judging them, it's more of like, hey, I love you enough for you not to eat that. Why don't you love yourself enough to not eat that?
Oh.
However, I can see how it's not super productive, and I could see how it could cause some scarring. So I'm going to reflect on that.
Yeah. And look, this has come up for me because I agree. And there's certain things there's foods where it's like, oh, of course I wouldn't eat that because I don't want that in my body. But I've had to learn the language around that with my coaching because not everyone, understands food and labels as well. And they're still learning. And so it has to be really approachable the way you kind of introducing someone to healthier foods and getting them to eat intuitively.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you're a trained coach, so I should actually probably take some tips from you. You know, and I guess you're trained in making it approachable and like not turning people off. So I'll keep you posted. I'm very happy for myself with my food journey and my relationship with food. But yeah, and there's also so many factors, right? There's my husband, like his language, there's family members. It's interesting to navigate. And now people like, you know, my kid gets to go for ice cream every Friday. Like I'm not so crazy strict, but I am really mindful and thoughtful, and she doesn't get candy at the supermarket or like things like that. So I don't know. Kim had a really good approach. There's still things where I draw a line where I'm never going to have Oreo cookies in my house or Doritos or, you know, I'm just not.
Totally. Because now there's healthier options because you can have Siete chips, you know?
Right.
And we eat ice cream, but it's like healthier ingredients in the ice cream.
Right.
Yeah, and yeah, when you know how good you can feel from making those choices. And also, I mean, there is an accessibility conversation, and we're so lucky to have access to these cleaner ingredient foods and be able to afford them because not everyone can. So, but you know, instead of paying like $10 for a little pint of really, you know, healthier ice cream that's not everyone could afford, it's like, okay, well, actually you could freeze a banana and coat it with like homemade chocolate sauce, and that's like way cheaper. So it's just like coming up with healthier versions that are accessible for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And I think it's really about empowering yourself with the information too. It's two levels, right? And it's like building that relationship with yourself, period, to trust yourself, love yourself, whatever you want to label it. Building that relationship with yourself and that relationship with your intuition, and
Mm-hmm.
then educating yourself on the ingredients, what different things mean, how to make better things. Like it's a journey. It just is like our if you were jumping into your spiritual journey, you wouldn't expect like, okay, 3 weeks in, you're gonna be good to go. Like this is kind of a lifelong journey and you're constantly learning and changing your opinions and up leveling and shifting and um but I think Kim gives us some really great foundational stuff in this episode and definitely some tips that even myself can, as I would consider a seasoned, seasoned in the wellness space, like there is some stuff in there that I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna take that in and start doing that.
Oh, I was taking notes. She's onto it. It's so informative. I was like, great. And even if you maybe know it, it's like that's such a good reminder. And it's like, oh, okay, I'm going to think of this, like bring it back to front of mind. I
Yes.
mean, Leash and I have been doing after dinner walks together now that it's like
Yes.
warming up
Yes.
because
I
we're
love that.
trying to drop our or make sure we're not spiking our blood sugar levels because we've been hearing that this as well. And that it's like just these little tips that you didn't know that you could
Yeah.
this could change so much just to go for a walk after a meal.
Yeah. And one last thing she shares, like her 6 tips or her 6 simple rules, I think she calls them. And they really
Yes.
are that simple. And they are
Yeah.
things that you're like, oof, I knew I should do that. Now that I'm hearing it again and maybe in a different way, I'm going to do that. And as she says, like, they're so simple, but they really are game changers. So, yeah, this was a good one. This was a lot of fun. Kim is just a really fun soul, has a great energy. We had a lot of fun talking. You can definitely, there's some moments in there where I'm like, ah, but what about this?
I know.
Like,
I hear
uh,
you. I'm like, oh my God, Brooke, right now.
yeah, anyone who knows me well, I mean, there are some moments where anyone could tell, but Mads, you listening to it, or anyone who knows me well will be like, we'll just know the moments where I was like gasping for a second. But Kim, like I said, she shares it in such a beautiful, approachable way. Like, I'm on board. I'm on board with her.
Yeah, she's a good one. She's a good one. Guys, don't be exhausted yet. You've still got another hour to listen to, and it is worth it. Take notes.
Yes. Get your notebook out for this one. This is a good one to share with family. If you're a mother, especially, share with the grandparents, the in laws. I will be doing that myself. Share with your friends. Like this is a great conversation starter. If you're a coach like Maddie, it's really great to listen to and share with other coaches, share with your clients. See what tips you can pull out. Kim has been in the space for almost 20 years and just has so much. She's great training, but just so much knowledge from being in the field. And so it was really great to get to scratch the surface of it with her.
Nice. Thank you for this episode, Brooke. I hope you guys enjoy it.
Yeah, thanks, guys. And as always, please follow us on your listening platform of choice. Check us out over on Instagram and TikTok at Expanders Club. And if you feel so inclined, please leave us a review. We'd love to hear how you're feeling about things. All right, we'll see you on the other side of this. Kim, hello, my friend. I am so excited to have you, and I have to start our conversation with a confession. So, Kim Shapira, you are actually give us your title for the title that you go by, and then I'll go into my confession.
This is so unexpected. It's just like so funny.
I have you on the edge of your seat. We like to make our guests super uncomfortable,
Yeah, so funny. I'm a registered dietitian. I would say I'm a nutrition therapist and I'm an author. My book is titled This Is What You're Really Hungry For. And, there's so much
Ooh.
more, but we'll get into it.
Yes, I love that language, nutrition therapist, and we're definitely gonna dive into that. But here's my confession: I have a problem with dietitians. I do not trust dietitians. I had a really bad experience with a dietitian, and it just has jaded me forever.
Mm.
And however, I've been watching you and gone down the rabbit hole of your content, and you're different, or you're at least very different from my experience.
I
So,
would say you're 100% right.
yes. So one, thank you for that. And I'll tell you, so my experience was like probably like 14 years ago. I had candida overgrowth. I didn't know this at the time, but you understanding what that is, you can imagine all the symptoms and things I was dealing with, and
Yeah.
all stemming from the gut. And went to all the doctors, got sent to a dietitian at UCLA, and just walked out of her office feeling so defeated. I was like, one, do I know more than this woman does? She was giving me terrible advice, and I didn't know much about health and wellness then. I mean, and it just was like, it made me feel really, really hopeless. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, where the doctors can't help me, this dietitian can't help me. Now what? Where do I
Yeah.
go? But I have a feeling your clients have a very different experience. So can you tell us a little bit about, I think your background is super interesting, and the different things that you studied to step into this world of, we'll call it nutrition therapy, because I love that. So anything you want to share there, and then kind of your approach around food, diet,
Oh, we are
nutrition.
not skipping over what you just said.
Okay, fair.
First of all, I want to apologize on behalf of like every dietitian. I can understand how horrifying that is and disappointing that is on so many levels. And I feel ashamed for our, you know, our whatever we're practicing. I really do deeply. I would say my degree, I have an undergraduate degree in my graduate degree is in human metabolism and clinical nutrition,
Okay.
which makes pretty much every dietitian similar. We all have and come from the exact same education. We've all worked in a hospital. We all understand how food interacts with our body. I would also add to my bio that I am more a functional nutritionist or dietitian. And I think there's a differentiation between the nutrition therapist and the functional nutrition. So, just very quickly to understand why I'm different is I started my career wanting to make people healthy. Like that was my goal. I want to be healthy, and I think
Yes.
everyone else does too.
Yes.
And somebody told me that food could make you sick or healthy, and I was like, that's it for me. And I went to grad school, and then I immediately did my clinical internship, and I saw dietitians and I saw them walk in and out of patient rooms, not really causing any real like transformational change. And it was really upsetting to me that you could give somebody a piece of paper and say, eat this. And I wasn't going to be that way.
Yes.
So when I started my private practice, I knew that I wanted to have relationships with people, help them make these changes. And my first client was a therapist. And I say that because I really feel like she should have known more than me.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I was 27. I put her on a diet. She lost 30 pounds. I'm like, I'm so good at my job. This is like, I'm so good. And then she told me she was going to gain the weight back. And I was lucky enough.
Wait. She told you before she started gaining back that oof.
Yeah. So like in that way, I was really lucky that she told me that. And when I asked her why, because we had just changed like all of her metabolic issues. We like course corrected her cholesterol and triglycerides and her blood pressure. And she was triggering me. Like, what do you mean? We just like made you healthy.
Right.
And then she said to me, my husband wants to be intimate with me all the time. And I was molested as a child. And I thought, okay, I don't know what I'm doing.
Oh, man. Yes. Yeah. That is, I mean, that's something that I've learned on my journey. And once you see it, it becomes so obvious that if you're going to work on, like, you can't just change your diet. There's a lot of underlying issues. And I think I watched this amazing video on your website with you talking about triggers, but like a lot of, from my understanding, and tell me if this is what you were saying in that video, is like a lot of our food habits or issues, perceptions come through the lens of triggers and
Yeah.
things that happen to us as kids, or this conditioning that we have. And so you can't just put someone on a diet. Like there's this whole holistic journey that has to happen.
No. And I know, like, for you walking into UCLA, that's like, one or two appointments with this stranger who is going to hand you a piece of paper
Yes.
and has no idea about where you're coming from or what your trauma is. And the emotional triggers, yeah, they happen in the first, 6 or 7 years of our life, but we develop new ones when we go through something traumatizing. And our job is to really learn how to master them. It doesn't mean we're not going to get new ones.
Yeah.
And we can't predict the storm. But it's really like what happens, and what you're saying is that the second I become emotionally triggered, which can happen in less than 10 seconds from anything perceived, imaginary, or physical. So any stress is going to cause me to become emotionally triggered. Sometimes it's going to land on me and I'm not going to be resilient. Sometimes I'm going to be unaffected by it. But what's really happening is that creates discomfort. And then your mind says, oh my gosh, we don't want you to be uncomfortable. I want you to be having fun in every single moment. And the last time you felt this way, we ate and you really felt better.
Wild.
Yeah.
Wow. So how do you take me from that moment where you're like, oh shit, there's more to this, I'm in over my head, then what?
Well, I think the real answer is mindfulness, to be honest, because the definition of mindfulness is to know where your mind is without judgment. And so if I could see that my mind is thinking about food, and I know my mind produces 60,000 thoughts in response to what I see, smell, feel, hear, or touch, then I could just let the thought pass, because I'm not going to judge the thought. Maybe I might detect, oh, that's an alarm going off. If I'm thinking about food, something's wrong with me.
Yes.
Let me check in with my body and see why the alarm went off. It could be that I'm hungry, but it could be that I'm in discomfort. I'm stressed, I'm bored, procrastinating, who knows? And if I can at least get into my body and see why the alarm went off, and I can accept the moment I'm in, then I can actually move forward correctly.
And that makes so much sense. And it sounds so simple when you say it, but how do you coach someone into getting to that place where they can pause, take a moment, recognize, even asking yourself those questions, right? That's like you have to evolve to get there. So how do you coach someone to get to that place?
I think all of our decisions come from a place of trust or fear. So we also have to know where we are as far as, do I trust myself? And I think we need to slow down a little bit and put in practices. Yes. So I always refer to Karate Kid, because Mr. Miyagi had him wax on, wax off. And he's like, how much longer am I going to do this for? And Mr. Miyagi's like, until I say you're done. And then the neighborhood kid came and tried to beat him, and he immediately waxed on and waxed off in reflex. And he became really trained in that without even knowing he was training.
Yes.
And so every single time you think about food, it's actually just taking a deep breath without any judgment and scanning your body to see, why would the alarm go off? Right. And then, I always use this quote. The word illness doesn't exactly fit in here, but we can say disordered eating. So if this disordered eating feels like a cage, please try to hear me. The door is unlocked and you are free to go. And people don't leave the cage because it's uncomfortable, because they haven't really created what it looks like outside. And so if we were to slow down time and the thought is chocolate's a good idea, eating the chocolate's going to keep us in the cage, which causes maybe discomfort in some of us. But we understand the discomfort and we're willing to kind of stay in that discomfort. So what happens now if we can say it's just a thought? There's also discomfort in not eating the chocolate. And that's the problem. I don't want to miss out. What if I never get it again?
Yes.
And so we
Yeah.
get to choose. We have to choose. But by not eating the chocolate when we're not hungry, then we're actually saying yes to ourselves.
Let's
That feels better.
Yeah. That's so powerful and empowering. Like one of the things with food that has always, or for a long time since I was able to like take my power back on my food journey, and that was really through that health journey of having candida and getting really sick and realizing, oh, the food that I'm eating is the number one thing that's contributing to this. And that was wild. That kind of was a blow my mind moment in a lot
Mm,
of ways, but also in the way of like, wait a minute, why didn't I know this information? Why am I so disconnected from something that I do every day? And I have to do it every day to survive. Yet I don't have this understanding, this relationship, this like, haven't done the research to like have my own power around this. Why do you think, like, what has led us to this place of being so
oh,
disconnected from maybe the most important decision we make every day?
so much. It comes down to being grounded,
Mm,
right? It comes down to knowing your own strength and tuning out other people's noises and other people's fears and projections.
mm,
And that even is your siblings, your peers when you're younger, and your parents. And because they have limitations. I mean, I think our kids are all going to be better versions of us.
yes.
And, our parents, their parents before them, and what they've gone through, and the food sources they had, and their food fears, and the comments and the messaging they gave us.
Dude, do you remember? Okay, so my one of my grandmothers was just like always dieting. And do you remember Richard Simmons?
Of course.
Like, so it must have been like the mid 90s. She had a
My dad
cupboard.
liked him.
Oh
I know
my
Rich.
God. She had a cupboard full of whatever the brand was. I can't even remember. Maybe it was even like, no, I'm not going to pretend to know what the brand was, but it was all like endorsed Richard Simmons foods. But it wasn't, it was food that we would sneak and eat because they were like cookies and popcorn. And I just remember this whole cupboard that she had that was just her snacks. And they all had freaking Richard Simmons
Of course they
on the
did.
cover of them.
Yeah.
It's that era was psychotic. Like that was crazy. Like the crazy processed fake foods that came out of that time. And I do think about us seeing these adults behaving this way. You're
Yeah.
not eating for nutrition, you're not eating for fuel. There's obviously something wrong if you're eating cookies, that you're trying to find cookies in every sweet treat possible that you think is better for you.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's the start, right? Like, first of all, I would even go back a little bit. When we can start calling food food,
Mm,
then we can move forward.
mm,
And and even cookies, I would put into this category without having any shame around food, without having any labels. It's good, bad, healthy, unhealthy, but it's just food. And then kind of figuring out, how does that make me feel?
yes. Yes.
We can then like heal ourselves.
Yes, I want to dig into that more because I was lucky to have that experience 14
Yeah,
years ago of getting really sick and was forced to ask those questions once I realized how impactful the food was.
right.
And kind of like you said with the wax on, wax off, then it just becomes ingrained in you. And so that is how I think about, and it doesn't even feel like effort is put in, but I think about every
That's the
meal, everything
paradox.
that I eat of like, how is that going to make me feel? And knowing that not feeling good, there's no food out there that's
Yeah.
worth not
Yeah.
feeling good.
I agree. I mean, the title of my book is called This Is What You're Really Hungry For. And I believe it's peace around
Mm,
our health.
mm,
And like, I was a sick kid. I wanted to be healthy.
mm-hmm.
So I'm not going to eat something that is going to take that away from me. I'm fully aligned with feeling well.
Yeah. Yeah. And so those of us who have been in that place of desperation, really this, like, it then becomes easy to make those choices, right? And be empowered around food. But how do we, and I saw this when I had my juice company, it was like the people that got it were people that were already had either dealt with or were dealing with sickness and illness. And so
Yeah.
we're healing themselves. And that was really great and cool. But I was always like, how do we prevent ourselves from getting there in the first place? Like, food is making you sick. You know, food can heal you. And the food choices you were making before were making you sick. So, like, why don't we just not even go through all of that and just eat food that feels good?
Yeah. Again, it's almost like, I mean, I love the story about how we're so afraid of snakes, and snakes, are so afraid of us that they project fear, and that vibration becomes our vibration. Now we think we fear them. And like, go
Wait a
ahead.
minute. Tell me more about that. Do you know the only thing I'm afraid of is snakes?
I'm terrified of snakes.
Dude, it's my mother's fault. My mother was terrified of them, and she's now conquered that fear. She's like, oh no, I'm fine. I kill snakes now. I'm like, cool. But like, you made me afraid of them. So what am I supposed to do with this?
Yeah. So it's my astrologer who actually told me the story, and he's so great. So I was telling him I was afraid of snakes. So we were talking about what I fear, and I was like, snakes for sure. And he said, snakes create this fear, and that projects to you, and you internalize it, and you think now you're afraid of snakes.
Wild.
And I, to be honest with you, now only see that vision when I'm talking to my clients with eating disorders or all eating disorders, all disordered eating, because the truth is my fear can easily become someone else's, and they didn't even know that it was mine, depending on
Interesting.
how much I'm shaking in my boots, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when you look at like young, susceptible humans and their parents talking about foods make them sick, or this one's not good for me, or I'm so fat, this creates that same snake like projection. And
Yes.
it's very confusing as we grow up to what's mine and what's yours. And I'm also bombarded, on social media, like, have this slim drink or this, fat reducing supplement, or don't have carbs. I mean, don't have carbs. Like,
What
what?
kind of life is that?
But carbs aren't even a food. They're a nutrient inside of food.
Right.
And
That's a
that's
very
like
good
fruit,
point.
vegetables, milk, starches with B vitamins and fiber. You're telling me that my body doesn't need these nutrients? My human body actually is sustained on these nutrients.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's such an interesting point. Carbs are not a food, they're a nutrient. Like, yeah, the different diets kind of drive me nuts, especially the more that I've learned about nutrition and I like just eat intuitively. And I want to go into that, but let's touch on this. Like, I have a 2.5-year-old. I know you have daughters. I I feel really good about my eating habits. However, I'm I do have some rigidity about things, and I think coming from that place of like I was so sick, like candy. We don't do candy. Um and a lot of things like, okay, so my husband gives me a bit of a hard time. She's 2.5. Okay, like she doesn't need processed sugar, she doesn't need food dyes. But when there's birthday parties at school, I'll send like I've instructed the teacher not to give her cake, and I send something else for her that's like approved in our world, but it's like not as fun as cake. Um
I'm
and
so
some
glad we're having this conversation.
Yes, me too. And she seems to be okay with it. Like we have the conversation of like, "Ooh, this makes me," and I don't know if this is the right language or not, but I want the right language because we talk about fruits and vegetables and how they make you feel. She'll ask about candy in the store. I'm like, "Ooh, that doesn't make me feel good. I don't like to eat candy." Um Now I'm saying this stuff out loud. Maybe it is. Maybe I'm not doing it perfectly. Uh on Halloween, we got away with no candy, and she loved giving out candy, but we had made some brownies together that had like cleaner ingredients, and so she was able, no, it was blueberry muffins. Because my husband was like, "Oh yeah, she's a lucky kid. She gets to have a blueberry muffin." But I'm trying to navigate it as a new mom, and especially when she does have something, and we'll go out for ice cream and stuff like that you can't control. But I see a difference in her personality, her energy when she does have access to something that's processed and with sugar. It is wild. it's like, where did my kid go? This is now a crazy person for, 2
Yeah.
hours. And so there's a lot trying to balance. And obviously, I know she's going to be out in the world on her own someday. Like, I have her in this little bubble. Like, what do I do?
Oh boy. Oh boy. Can you bring your husband in? Can he come and have a sit down with us?
Oh God. I mean, I just got him off of soda a few years ago. So he
Yeah.
and there are some like little arguments in our household because he'll make some suggestions or thoughts around food and I'm like, no, we're
Yeah.
not doing that. The other day he suggested cow's milk and I was like, I didn't say a word, but I knew my face, like by his reaction, like my
Yeah.
face must have been
Yeah.
crazy. So I think I do have some rigidity. Like I would never buy Oreos or processed cookies or anything in our house. Like I guess I'm willing to admit I do have some rigidity around it.
No, what
But
you have is fear. What you have is fear.
yeah.
We don't come from a place of trust when we're fear-based. That is warranted. You didn't feel well, you were sick, and you saw a difference. So if you're open to my suggestions, here's what I would say. And I kind of just want to meet you where you're at, so to speak.
Totally.
And open your mind because I am raising 3 daughters, 20, 17, 15. And my mom actually was, I think, restricted or told, only wore like elastic pants, I think, growing up was her comment. And she didn't raise us that way. And I noticed that all of my friends would come over and eat all of our food. And we just never thought of food as anything other than when we were hungry.
Right. Yeah.
And when one of my mommy and me classes, so this goes back 18 years ago, the teacher was saying, when your child falls on the sidewalk and starts crying, don't tell them not to cry because you can't see the pebbles in their knee. And I loved that so much so early on because it really taught me that my daughter needs to tell me what she's feeling and what she needs. And my journey is not her journey. And I am here to support my children's journeys. And that's it. That's it. And it's very important, in my opinion, for the child to feel very comfortable in front of their peers. They spend 60 hours a week with their friends.
Yeah.
And their friends can be mean. They can be terrible. And your child needs to be confident and feel strong. She's going to grow up and say, I don't like candy. I mean, I'm 51. I don't even know the last time I ate candy.
Right.
But I never was restricted from it. I kind of just outgrew it. And, not labeling a child as picky is very important because we don't want anybody to feel stuck in a corner. We want everybody to feel like they could be anything they want in any moment.
Yeah.
And, giving, for me, raising my daughters, we probably currently have 5 different types of cereal in my pantry, 2 different types of bread, 3 different types of milk. We have 2 different types of yogurt. We have ice cream, gelato, everything. We have every kind of cookie, cake mix.
All right, I'm coming to your house.
We have a pantry full of everything. And 9 times out of 10, my kids will say we have no food in the house because they don't see it, because it's available to them. Yesterday, we threw out 6 pumpkin muffins and these cookies that I bought for my daughter's birthday because no one ate them, because it's available to them and it's never restricted from them.
Yeah. And they don't feel like what you had said earlier, like this is the last time I'm ever going to get the opportunity to eat this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So when Olivia, who's 20, was younger, we would go to the mall and she would get a pretzel. And I'm a dietitian. So I never judged food, but I was like, all right. Then she started saying, I'm getting a stomach ache. And I would say to her, God, I wonder if it's a pretzel. Why don't you try eating half and see what happens? And so she started doing that, and she started still having a stomach ache. And so she decided on her own, I think around 6 years old, that she wasn't going to have a pretzel anymore. And that's empowerment.
Yeah.
That's inner power. So when she's with her friends who are having pretzels, or when she's, starving, she's going to make a different choice because she knows how it makes her feel.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, You're a big person. That would be difficult for me. Not that we're so restrictive. Yeah, I don't know how I'd do with the soft pretzel. But we do bake together a lot. Like within our house, there's a lot of treats. I have a sweet tooth. My daughter loves dark chocolate. Like there are plenty of things that we eat that are treats, but you're like, there's a clear line for me of like what's a good
Yeah, and
treat versus
I
what's a
get
bad
it.
treat.
I get it, but that's yours.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And like for me, I call food food. I don't call it treats. I don't call it dessert.
Mm,
I don't call it
mm,
special. I don't sensationalize food.
yeah.
We eat it when we're hungry. And when raising my kids, like every single meal, they had 2 or 3 cut fruits or vegetables
Yeah.
on the table at every meal. When they got home from school, they had cut fruits and vegetables on the table and anything else they wanted from the snack drawer. And then the kitchen was closed. Every dinner, 2 or 3 fruits that were cut with dinner and 2 different vegetables for sure, served with their starch and their protein, whatever
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
balance was. Excuse me. But it was because we'll eat food if it's in front of us, but we never
Right.
labeled it as good or bad.
Yeah.
And, there was pineapple and peaches, and I don't eat pineapple. So I had peaches. We didn't comment about it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's really interesting. Like having less of a conversation about it. And as the mom, like just making things available that are delicious and feel good. So maybe they make that choice first. And okay, if they still want some chocolate or something, well, they're probably going to eat less because they've already had a bunch of other stuff that's good. The other thing I have issue with, and I'm interested to hear how you would suggest handling that, is family members I see, like grandparents, want to show love through food. And it usually is treats, candy, cupcakes. What the fuck is going on there? Like,
They're trying to trigger you.
I knew it. I knew that was what was happening.
It's a test. It's a test from the universe to say, are you paying attention and are you unattached to this?
Why have we this is another reason why I am vocal and clear about my preferences with family, because otherwise that would happen. It doesn't happen much in my family. Actually, it's funny. We just saw my sister-in-law, and my mother-in-law sent a bunch of freeze-dried like berries, like from Trader Joe's, like blueberries and strawberries, with her to give to my daughter. And my sister told my brother-in-law that like this, because she can't give her candy, like this was her way of giving her like a sweet treat from her Nana, which just is funny. But also it's like, why would you want to send candy to a 2-year-old that you love? Like that doesn't why do we show love through treats and food? Like, what is that?
It's totally a purpose to test you, but also it's like a limitation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the truth is I remember talking to a friend years ago, and she was saying that for the holidays, she was going to get her family experiences rather than gifts. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
Yeah. We
for
do
her
that.
husband, it was a concert. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think what happens is people don't actually understand what that means. And so they think gifting,
Yeah.
is food.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
buying food or preparing food. And I think that's an opportunity for you to kind of say, this is what we love in our family, for sure.
Stop trying to poison my kid. No, just kidding. No, just kidding. Kind of mostly.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's a tough one, controlling what others. And
You
like I said,
can't.
we've been in this bubble. Like I know we're heading out of the bubble quickly. Like we're at 2.5. Like yeah,
I would say try not to control it. It's kind of like saying, I know you're hungry, you need to eat. We don't know. We don't see the
right.
pebbles in their knee.
Right.
We do not know what they're feeling.
Yeah. Why do we feel like, is that a generational thing, or like why do we feel like food equals love?
I definitely think it's generational for sure. Definitely passed down. Even in class, all my kids' classes, their projects are what family foods do you eat during the holidays? What's a big cultural theme in your family? I think that is definitely, we put a lot of emphasis on it. But I have to tell you, right when I got pregnant, I remember having a conversation with my father-in-law, who's like this New Jersey, like loud, very like, he was very obsessed with like fat and weight and his
Mm,
body. And I remember saying to him, when you come into my house, once I have this child, you cannot use the word fat, calories, diet, or talk about food. And
wow.
he like really threw a fit with me. And I was like, that's going to be the law.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's, in the last 20 years since I mentioned that to him, he has done it once. And I did say to him, it's still not okay.
Wow. Wow. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
it's not okay.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
I need you to like come to my next few family gatherings and just like coach me through it all, Even my mom is tiny. She's like 5'1", 90 pounds. And I remember having a conversation with her, and I don't think like I have no attachment really to food stuff with her any longer, but I remember a few years ago, and like I've been trying to pass down, food wisdom, wellness wisdom, supplement wisdom. And I remember I don't remember what it was going on. She was she's trying to be healthier. She's seeing someone who's helping her, trying to get in more healthy foods. And I was like, oh, why don't you have something? I mean, we grew up, she would eat like a toaster strudel for breakfast.
Yeah,
Like
that
it
makes
was
sense.
like a sweet
Yeah.
coffee cake with her coffee. So interesting. And I think it was something around breakfast. And I was like, oh, what if you did like half an avocado with whatever it was that she was eating? And she was like, avocados have a lot of fat. I'm not going to eat that. And it was just a moment of like taking a deep breath and like, mom,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
that's good for you. Healthy fat is good for you, especially as you're aging. There's so many benefits from it. And like, she was like, oh, that has a lot of fat, still on the fat-free dressing, like,
Yeah.
low fat things. Like, that's like really, and it's really ingrained in people. And we catch on, you were starting to talk about diets and different fads and like the information that we're being shared, but we take these, especially now with social media, we take these like sound bites of what someone's saying, who we don't even know what their background
You do not know.
is good for you or has worked for them, or they've lost a bunch of weight, and we take that and apply it. It's like, it's not even like a band-aid. It's just like a sticker that has lost all of its sticky edge that we're like then putting on ourselves and trying out. And it's like, this is a whole holistic journey. Like, you
It
can
is.
put on as many stickers or band-aids as you want, and it's just going to be you covered in stickers and band-aids.
Yeah. That to me is like, that's just you walking into UCLA all over again,
Yeah.
not having any idea of the noise and the
Yeah.
trauma and what you're tethered to and what her mom taught her that she passed
Mm-hmm.
on to you. And she did it in love
Yeah.
because she
It's
thought it was the right thing to do.
it's almost like, I think too, this is something I've seen for a lot of people, is like the stepping into their food or like wellness journey kind of automatically leads them into this spiritual journey, because
Yeah.
they're just so tied together. Like, you can't really adjust one without adjusting the other. Like, you can talk to your astrologer all you want. You can see as many,
Yeah.
as many psychics. You can try and heal your soul. But if you're then binge eating McDonald's, like, you might
Yeah.
as well just not do any of that.
I agree. But what's really interesting is that if you ask like anybody, do you trust yourself? Not everybody is going to be able to say
Mm,
yes.
mm, mm.
And how do you move forward when you don't?
That is such an interesting question. I don't know if I've ever heard anyone say that. And that is like giving me a moment to think. And almost, it's so interesting how that question, I mean, one, I would ask anyone listening, like, pause and ask yourself that. Do you trust yourself? But for me, you just unlocked like a lot of the reasonings behind me and how I've come to where I am, where I was the only one I trusted for a
Yeah.
long time.
Yeah, I
And that
believe
has
it.
its own
No, me
issues,
too, by
but
the way. And by the way, we're all chronically stressed.
mm,
So then the question is, do we trust the universe?
right,
And
right.
I believe what's out is in,
Mm,
what's up is down.
mhm,
So we're mirrors. And can we? So even like Sophia's 17 and she was going to parties and we started talking about drugs and alcohol and all the things. And she was like, Mom, I make good decisions. And I was like, it's just one bad decision and it's not your decision. It's the other people. Right. And so you're talking about the same thing with food that I'm talking about with drugs and the same fears.
Yeah. God,
And
I do not want to get to that chapter of parenthood.
you are going to get to it. You are going to get to it. All these different things. Letting your daughter sleep in another person's house. Like all the things.
Yeah.
All the things that are, yeah.
How do you teach your daughters to trust themselves?
Yeah. I mean, I listen to them and I believe them. And I also open them up to believing in the universe. Because I do believe that we are so interconnected.
Yeah. Tell me more about that. This is where I love to go. What are your beliefs around the universe and how does it impact how you work with people and how you live your life?
Yeah. So like talking about like astrology or psychics, like my astrologer once said, if you need a psychic, then you're very unhappy with the moment you're in. And he was very furious with me, but I see my astrologer once a year and he likes to give me like the weather report of what it's going to look like. And that's kind of how I view it. And so on a daily basis, I check the weather report. And normally when I'm with a client, I know that what is out is in. And so if the weather is saying it's going to be stormy, hold back, don't cause any fights, then it's very easy to know that probably there's something emotionally going on with my clients. And we have to ground and, kind of learn how to coast through these without thinking food is a good idea. Right? I want to keep them on their journey. So I do that all the time. And I mean, I don't know. Do you know the story about how I talked to the universe about, now I have to share it, obviously. I love having conversations with the universe. And I said to the universe in 2019, if I'm meant to write a book, you're going to give me a sign. And if you give me a bowl of oranges with a peacock, I will write a book.
We're so absurd. Like the universe can't just like send us the message. It's like we need to see the most outrageous thing ever. And then we probably need like 3 more signs after that.
Exactly. Well, this one was pretty clear. So I'm like, I'm going to give you 1 month, bowl of oranges and a peacock. And every day I reminded the universe that I was waiting. 3 weeks into this, I was in a supermarket at Gelson's. And I do know from different readings that you get a lot of signs in motion and in market, to be honest. So I happened to be in a market. I didn't know this in 2019. And the woman in front of me tipped her elbow and hit a cantaloupe. And the cantaloupe fell on the floor and rolled like 20 feet away. And I remember thinking, lady, that's you. You dropped that cantaloupe. You should pick it up. But she didn't. So I'm like, oh, dude, I'll go get it. And then I thought in the 20 feet, maybe I'm meant to look at this cantaloupe. So I picked it up and I turned it over and there was a peacock right on the cantaloupe. And I was like, oh, cantaloupes are orange. This is a peacock. I think I'm getting my sign. So I bought the cantaloupe that fell on the floor. I brought it home. And the next morning I was kind of like staring at it, drinking coffee, like so happy. And then I was like, oh my God, it's got an orange sticker with the peacock and it's called Orange Dew.
Oh my God.
I'm like, this couldn't be any more clear.
That's amazing. And like, it's so fun. And also like, how had you not been, so there's so many layers to that, right? Like one, you have to ask, one, you have to believe that you will get the sign if it's meant to be. And then you have to spend all that time listening.
Yeah.
So it's like quite the exercise.
You're right. I mean, I knew it was coming. I was just like, we're down to the last week.
Well, and that is the thing too, right? When you asked, you knew.
Yeah.
You already knew that you were supposed to write a book.
But I'm like, do I spend all this time doing it? Yeah. Yes.
Because the logical brain starts to give us reasons.
Yeah.
Reasons to question it. Who are you to write a book? Why do you want to spend your time doing that? Will it be worth it? Like, versus the universe is just very clear. It's like, yeah, write a book. Like,
Yeah.
and tell
So
us
my book is
about,
orange, by the way.
yes, tell
And
us
I
about
didn't
your
do
book.
that.
Wait, what?
The publisher did that.
That's amazing.
It's amazing.
Ooh, orange. Do you know what color your aura is?
No, I need to find out.
Yeah, I wonder if it's orange.
But I do work on my aura every day.
Yes. This is the kind of stuff that I'm talking about, people. Okay, tell me, how do you work on your aura?
Well, I just, wherever I am, sometimes it's 10 times a day, sometimes it's once a day, but I just like quickly put my hands in prayer pose and I just, push my hands close and I imagine my aura. I click open a funnel above my head. I let all the energy flow in through my body. And then I just open my hands and let it flow through me, filling up my aura, making sure it's fully intact, that nothing's going to seep in that isn't meant for me. And sometimes I just, expand it and make it as big as I can. And then I just seal it up and carry on.
Yes, I love that. And you are such a magnetic person. So I bet that is a big part of the reason. Like, aura health. You have to do an aura reading though, because you can learn so much from it. But the colors and the size of your aura too are such a fun. It's just really fun to like have that association. Like, my colors are green and yellow and those mean certain things. And it also when I wear those colors, like, I notice people reacting to me much differently. I also now have an awareness of the size of my aura. So I know that, it's larger than a room. So I know that I can impact people like before I even walk in, and I can start to like work on that energy field and impact, or, start to change the energy of a space. So I would love to have a conversation with you once you have an aura reading.
Yeah. Do you have a referral for me?
I got mine done in Sedona. A lot of people have been asking for aura referrals lately though. So I'm going to see, I'm going to see what I can find out.
Call that in.
That's so fun. So tell us about your book. I love the title.
Thank you. My book, it's just like, it's based on my 6 simple rules, which I think are the foundation to having a healthy relationship with food. They're also really important to be well and stay well.
Mm-hmm.
And when you follow them at about 90%, if you want to lose weight, they will help you lose weight. If you want to stay the same weight, they will help you do that too. If you follow the rules at 80%, you're going to lose maybe less weight than at 90. If you follow the rules at 70%, you're just going to maintain, which is fantastic. 60%, you're going to be in a gaining place. So it's really good for you to be able to gauge and understand your role in how you're connected to these rules.
Let's talk about these rules, because I love them and they feel like just the foundation for like being a human, just the foundation for living. Like, do these rules and do them until you're in a place where they're not rules anymore. They just are who you are. So let's go through them, because when you hear them, it's actually really empowering, because you're like, oh shit, like, that's it. That's all I have to do. Yet you can also see where we don't do them in our day to day. But let's talk about what they are, if you don't mind.
No. But I would say, before you even can get into like the first, you really need to know where your mind is.
Mm-hmm.
And so before you even can know anything, I would always ask yourself, what time zone is your mind in? And make sure that it's in the same one as your body, because then you can identify if you're hungry or not. Like, we know we have to pee. We don't know how we know. We don't even know where our bladder is, but we know.
Right.
We also know if we're hungry or not. And we need to be in our body to know it.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Well, being in your body is key. It's key to so many things. So before we get to the 6 rules, there's so many layers to this, people. This is why you need a coach, a healer, a dietitian, like someone to really work with and coach you through this. Not because it's hard, but it's just like, there's some layers to peel back and places to start that make it a lot easier and make set you up with the right foundation. So let's talk about grounding and let's talk about getting in the body. What do you suggest someone does? And maybe it's like, let's keep it simple. Is there something like to start your day, to get in your body and know and feel good. Like, okay, I'm in my body. Now I don't have to think about that again. I can just go through the rest of my day making choices from
No,
there.
you
Damn
can't.
it.
We have new emotions like every 15 minutes, like we can't. We have to check ourselves. And
Yeah.
here's what I really think. I think that we have 60,000 thoughts based on what we see, smell, feel, hear, and touch, right? And our mind wants us to survive every minute in the most pleasurable way. And we have 221 food thoughts a day: salt, pepper, water, steak, chicken, whatever it might be, right? So all of that. And then we have interactions throughout the day and these emotional triggers. So no, we have to constantly be checking in and Mr. Miyagiing the wax on, wax off. That's, mindfulness is like knowing where your mind is without
Right.
judgment. And we
Right.
judge every thought. We have to stop
Yes.
the judgment. So I think one quick practice is asking yourself, where is my body? And then replying, it's right here. And then saying, where is my mind? And just like we can know if we have to pee, we can actually find our mind. And sometimes it's on a conversation we had last week. And we need to then repeat it. Where's my body? It's here. Where's my mind? Oh, it's getting closer. We actually will know this.
Yeah. Yes.
And so we repeat it until our mind is in our body. But think about it like this. If you and I were in the middle of a podcast and all of a sudden your house alarm went off, you would say, Kim, I'll be right back. You would run, turn the alarm off. You would check your house to make sure you were safe, and then you would come back. So when we have a thought that food is a good idea, it's an alarm. Go to the alarm center, turn it off. We have to scan our bodies and think, why did the alarm go off? And it could be because you're hungry. It could be because your in-laws or somebody just delivered cupcakes. It could be, that you're stressed. And so only when we know why we had the thought can we actually appropriately respond.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. That's a great comparison. It's an alarm. You'd go to the alarm system. For us, it's a little iPad, and turn it off and say, okay, why was the alarm going off?
Yeah.
Process that, check in with that, and then decide what to do from there. Yeah. That makes it feel pretty simple.
Yeah, exactly. Think about hunger just like having to pee.
Yeah.
It's a natural sensation you have that your body's telling you, pay attention to me.
Yeah.
And we should be hungry. We should be hungry every couple hours.
Yeah. I mean, it's a whole other episode that we need to do about that. And then what choices do you make once you're like, okay, yes, I'm hungry, but let's get into the 6 simple
really quickly,
rules.
because I think this is I want to hone that in really quickly. What if I said to you, okay, Brooke, I'm going to let you pee one time today and I'm going to pick the time. That would cause so much anxiety.
Yes, it would, because I pee a lot.
But also you trust that you will find a toilet when you need it. And that's how food has to be.
Ooh, okay.
Okay. So now you can get into the rules, because now you understand your mind has to be here. It cannot be full of stress or fear or anything like that, because we eat when we're hungry.
Yep.
So the rule number 1 is to eat when you're hungry, to take your normal portion, cut it in half. Now I know everybody freaks out. Wait, I'm going to not have enough, or that's not going to be enough. I'm not going to be satisfied. What do I do with the other half? Hold on. Take your normal portion, cut it in half, slow down how you eat the first half. Really be intentional. Smell your food, get the saliva, make sure that you're swallowing a liquid bolus, so that way you've already broken down the food. Chew it longer than you think necessary. Slow down how fast you're eating food that you say you love. And in about a 15-minute window from the time we take our first bite, we will get a hormone leptin that will tell us if we need more or less. And people don't like to wait that 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And then we all end up overeating our food.
Yeah. I mean,
so it's tricky.
Yes, that's interesting. So simple, yet probably hard to do for most people. Yeah.
For so many reasons. And try to be more trusting and less fearful.
Yeah.
Because nobody's trying to restrict you. Just trying to get you in your body to see what your body needs, knowing that it's not the same thing it did yesterday, or, what your friend needs. Yeah.
Yeah. And the food's right there. You just,
right there.
If you decide you want more, you have more. Yeah. Okay. That's feels like a good place to start.
Rule number 2 is to eat what you love, with the caveat that the food has to love you back.
Yes. Yes. I love that.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's really a place to heal here, to get away from labels and shoulds and shouldn'ts, so we can actually be in our own body to know what is right for me. Like my family all eats beef and I do not, because it makes me sick.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't need to talk about it or share that with them. I just make myself, I eat the other things on the table without
Yeah.
having to label it.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, Sophia, during COVID, she said to me, she was 13 or 14. She said to me, Mom, I think I'm going to be a vegetarian. Every red flag went off in my
Oh
head.
God.
Yep. I'm like, oh no, oh God. Um, and I said, how about you just eat anything you want without labeling how you are as
Mm,
an eater. And if
mm,
you feel like having a vegetarian meal, you do that without telling anyone. If you have a steak, you do that and you don't worry about it. And that was the end of the conversation. I'm really happy to report. And she goes in and out of being any type of eater she
yes.
wants to be.
Yes. The labels thing, again, is a whole other conversation, but like we get these labels, they become our identity. We choose them. Sometimes other people choose them for us,
Yes,
you
we have to be
know?
careful. These little
Yeah.
minds. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Rule number 3 is to eat without distractions. And so we eat because of emotional reasons. We eat for physical cravings. We eat because the food is in front of us. But I only want you to eat because you're hungry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Rule number 4 is 10,000 steps. And the average American gets about 3,000 steps. Exercise does not help you lose weight, but it helps you maintain your weight. And I think that's a very big misunderstanding. We cannot maintain our weight without muscle. We can't
Yes.
maintain our weight without moving our body. And getting 10,000 steps decreases your risk of sudden death by 50% and your risk of dementia and every other disease,
Yes.
everything.
Yes. There's so much information coming out on how good walking is for you. Not to say that working out or doing more rigorous things aren't, but just we can all, like, you could wrap your head around making time to walk. And there was something I read this week, I think it was, that about how beneficial a walk, even if it's just around the block after having a meal, is for
Always,
your blood sugar.
always. Yeah. So, I mean, that's a very long conversation, but just to make it very quick, when you exercise or go for a walk or up and down your stairs before you eat or after you eat, it actually helps your cells upload the sugar in your bloodstream. So
Mm,
it's very important to helping you balance your blood sugar.
okay. Interesting. Amazing.
Yeah. And then rule 5 is to get 8 cups of water every day, which again, I believe what's out is in. And, the world is like 50% or 70% water, and so are we. And so we need to make sure that we drink enough water to help our body and cell detox.
Yes. Quick side note. Do you add anything to your water?
No, I do not.
Okay. Okay.
Sometimes I try things just to see how they taste, but in general, unless I'm exercising for 2 hours or longer in heat, I don't need any help getting water into my cells because I have a diet that's
Mm,
pretty balanced. When you're on a low carb diet, so the word carbohydrate actually means hydrate, and it's attached to sugar. So if you don't have sugar, like fruit, vegetables, milk, or breads, then you can't absorb water into your cells. So then you're for sure
what?
going to need, yeah, it's again so misunderstood, but look at the word carbohydrate.
Right. Yeah. Why? You're saying the most simple things, but yes. I've never
Yeah.
thought of it that way. I mean, I eat a ton of fruit and vegetables, so I've
Yeah.
never been a fan of the like cut fruit out, just because when I eat fruit, I know how it makes me feel. I feel like I'm literally eating energy, eating fuel.
Yeah.
So it's like that
You
doesn't
are.
make sense not to eat that. But I had no idea.
Yeah. When you go on a low carb diet, which 100% I do not want you to do, you can afford to like lose water, right? So since you're 50 to 70% water, when you cut out the foods that help you absorb water, you dehydrate. And
Mm,
it looks like you got on a scale and lost weight. And
right.
that's why people are like, carbs are bad. And then the second you add back an apple or rice, I mean, think about rice. We add water to the grain, then the water gets absorbed into the
Yeah.
grain, and then
Yeah.
we eat the grain. So the second we eat carbohydrates, we then look like an apple, and therefore carbs are bad. But all we really did was rehydrate.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's wild. What about like any of the minerals or like a sprinkle of salt or anything like that in your water?
Sometimes, I mean, like if I'm feeling sick or dehydrated, or again, if I'm
Mm.
in heat, if I've been sick, then for sure I definitely recommend it. But I think our water has everything we need.
Yeah. I mean, I'm guilty of it. The like electrolyte packets and all of that are so trendy and like have been for a while. And I don't work out rigorously, people, but like I'm putting electrolytes in I switched to one that has like a few other things like magnesium and potassium and I
And
have really high.
it's in a package, which is processed.
Yeah.
It's got additives like fake sugars that your body can't recognize, and it's going to be disruptive to your GI. Like the number one hydrating drink is actually Gatorade because it's sugar, salt, and water. Yeah. And the last rule is to get 7 hours of sleep. The average American gets about 6.5, and this is disruptive for our cortisol levels. We really need between 7 and 9.
Yeah.
And, when you think about circadian rhythms, which is our sleep and wake cycles, people take sleep aids. I mean, there's I
Mm.
think, two main aisles at a pharmacy for sleep aids. And we really like when you have a young kid, like, how it is. Your pediatrician probably said if your daughter is tired and she's yawning, don't miss that window, or it will cause her not to be able to sleep through the night. And we totally ignore
Hmm.
our own signs that we're ready for bed.
Oh my God. The sleep habits just get terrible. Like we all have terrible sleep habits. Like how these things that you're saying are so, like we said before you even said them, they're so simple, but like how are we so removed from doing these basic things that are just help us stay normal and regulate our bodies? Like what, why?
Well, then it's that production, right? My friends said that I need to,
Mm.
do this or drink celery or eat protein, and they are amazing. They're popular and people like them, so they must know more than I know.
Wait, are you not into celery juice? Tell
I'm
me.
I'm into celery. I'm not into celery juice.
Oh,
I'm definitely into celery. Are you into celery juice?
I am. I don't do it as often anymore. I mean, I had a juice company for a long time, cold pressed juice. So I am a big fan of juicing, not as like a meal replacement. We never even actually, I refused to sell juice cleanses. We would sell cleanses that had food with them, that had like fresh salads or raw
Mhm.
meals that had protein and fat. And then we would sell like these milkshakes that we made with them too. So not that that was perfect, but I'm not into like replacing food with
Same.
juice. But man, freshly pressed freaking green juice is like
No,
that's
I
my happy
love it.
place.
I actually love it too, but I think the serving size is controversial.
Oh God. Yeah. 16. Who need no one so we would do 12 ounces. Like no one needs not even that's too much. You don't need 16 ounces of freaking juice. And most of these juices at the store, like it's like orange, carrot, apple
Right,
juice. They're like, what? Like
right,
what?
right,
I'll
right.
just have a piece of cake. you know?
I think sometimes, like, I really do, like, again, you and we talked about this earlier. There are people who walked into your juice shop who got it. And
Yeah.
then there are people who were trying to get it.
Yes.
And I think, like, you don't want to replace eating celery. You want to still eat celery. You want to chew. You want to
Yes.
have the fiber. You want to have all of the things that are going to happen from chewing the food. And sometimes when we have juice, it can cause GI distress, and we're moving
Mm,
things out of our system, like with dumping, too fast.
mm.
And so it really is for the right person, great. But it's not I don't think needs to be done every day for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think sometimes.
And I think that's really what a lot of it boils down to. And kind of what you've been saying this whole time is like, do you trust yourself? Like gathering the tools and the information along the journey to get to that place where you trust yourself and you don't have to see what the latest trend is. You don't have to read a book to understand how to eat. You in the moment can say, is this what I want? Is it going to make me feel good? Why do I want it? Great. And that's not like that becomes a process that doesn't take 3 minutes to work through. That just is your
I agree.
automatic flow. And so I think that message is so important. And it sounds like you are really working to give people the tools to ask that question. And do you trust yourself? And say, yes, absolutely. I freaking trust myself. And
Wouldn't that
now
be
I'm,
amazing if everyone did?
God, yes, because it is heartbreaking. I've seen my own family members go through it where they have health issues and they're going to every single doctor and not getting answers. And it's like, man, did you stop to check in with yourself
Right.
and, you know, start to understand what works and what doesn't work for your body? And it's a lot of us only get there when we're in a place of desperation.
I know. Doesn't have to be.
Yeah. Well, I think for us, you know, we're going to need to probably have more chats about how I should handle food with my daughter. But I'm going to re-listen to that section quite a few times and work on it, because I want her to feel freedom from any of this, and like have a great relationship with food, and eat for joy and health and to feel fueled. But I do think that I see some bad habits being passed on, but I think in general, we're helping to build a generation that is much more evolved in that language, that thinking than we were. So that feels really exciting. Like this next generation, we've kind of batted down a lot of stuff that was handed off to us.
Yeah, you're right. I think you're right on. And I think it's going to take some deep breaths and some real grounding practices to help people honor themselves from, from here on out.
Yeah. You have 20 seconds with someone. What's the number one like piece of advice or most empowering thing you could say to them?
Honestly, eat when you're hungry, start with half. Wait 15 minutes. See if you need more food.
For some reason, I just got a visual of you like in a car yelling out the window, eat when you're hungry, start with half.
I mean, I like
everyone.
We can totally take this from the podcast and just have you doing that. I mean, like, there's so much fear. Like, don't be afraid. Yeah. Just experiment. Why are you eating?
Yeah.
It's going to be right there. We eat like 21 meals a week. We don't remember any of them.
Yeah. No. And like, set yourself free. Empower yourself. Empowerment equals freedom. Like, this doesn't, like, we shouldn't even be, I love how your approach, like, we shouldn't even be having conversations about food.
No.
We give it so much power.
I mean, somebody was asking me earlier today how much protein, and I'm like, why are you counting? You've survived your entire life. Like, don't start counting now.
Yeah. Oh my God.
There's protein in everything. Trust that you're getting enough. You're fine. But I would say, if I had 10 seconds with someone, I would say you're the healer. You're the healer. You're the only one that is going to save you.
That hits. That's powerful. Wow. Thank you for that. Before we go, I have to ask you, for all of our spiritual friends, tell us your sun, moon, and rising signs, please.
I don't know it. Okay. Taurus. I don't know. Capricorn and Leo, but I don't know which one's which.
Leo's for sure your rising.
Okay.
So Leo is like energetic, out there on stage, like center of attention, not in a bad way, but like, sharing their voice. And your rising is, how your outer world and how you're represented in the world. So I would guess for sure your Leo rising. And if you're a sun, or if your moon is Capricorn, I think that your moon and rising are the same as Brooke
really?
who we just had on the podcast. Yeah. So that's super interesting.
What about you?
And a Taurus. So you are grounded and very like, yes, you definitely have very Taurus energy. Like, you say things and share things in a really beautiful way that's easy to process and understand. You're so Taurus. I am Cancer sun, Cancer moon, and Aries rising.
Ooh.
So double water and some fire. We're all three of us in my nuclear family, my husband and daughter, we all have double water.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. They both have earth, and I have fire as my second element, so it makes for an interesting combination. I see, yeah, I see them pairing up against me in the future.
Well, then you're going to have to really have some grounding practices.
Yes, exactly. And do you know what your human design is?
You know what? I don't remember. Oh, yeah. Projector.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yes. All of
What
this
about
is
you? Does it
all
make
this
sense?
is so on point, makes so much sense. I'm a generator.
That makes sense too.
Yeah. Yes. I love this stuff. And this conversation, we're gonna have to do a second and third and fourth episode because I feel like there's so many nooks and crannies that we need to dig into. And for anyone listening, like hit us up in the DMs after you listen and let us know what direction you want us to go next, because we will definitely need to have Kim back. Kim, how can people find you? How can they work with you? Where can they get the book? Tell us all the things.
You can find me everywhere at Kim Shapira Method. So my website, all the socials are Kim Shapira Method. You can work with me privately or in group settings. I also have a masterclass that's available. So if you want to work on yourself privately and do it over a 4.5 hour window, that's great too, or at your own pace. And my book is available everywhere that books are sold.
Yes. What's the name? What's the title of your book?
This is what you're really hungry for.
Yes. And we will put links to everything. This conversation was so great. And I think for anyone listening, like this is a really great conversation to share with family members, with friends, whether someone is struggling around food or health or wellness or not. Like, I think there's so many great tidbits that we can all, I consider myself pretty far along on my health and wellness journey, but I definitely gained a lot of insight and tidbits from this conversation that I will be applying immediately. So Kim, thanks for sharing your energy. Thanks for sharing your knowledge. Really excited for everyone to listen to this one.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This was so much fun.
Yeah. Thank you guys. Have a good one.